Hi, I'm Wade Keller, editor of Pro Wrestling Torch Weekly Newsletter and PWTorch.com, in conjunction with Big Vision Entertainment. This is the Ultimate Insider Series, and we are with Matt Hardy. Hello, Matt.
Hello.
Now, you were known as Jeff Hardy's brother for quite a bit of your career. It kind of grew to be that way, where Jeff Hardy's this flashy guy, and you, as he began to lose interest in wrestling, or wasn't as sure that that's what he wanted to dedicate his life to, you at the same time were gaining this confidence. This is what you wanted to do, and you wanted your own identity. You didn't want to be one of the two Hardy boys or Jeff Hardy's brother, just like he was known as Matt Hardy's brother. You wanted your own identity. What steps did you have to take to differentiate yourself from the image that you had established as a tag team?
First off, it's a very good question that you bring up, but there's something I want to add that I think people miss a lot.
Yeah.
And even in that, I think you missed as well. You said that I wanted to create this identity or become an identity on my own. One thing about Jeff was I think he kind of peaked as how he was as a performer, and then once he started becoming burnt out, then he started declining as a performer. But the thing with me was, even if you look back at my earlier matches, like, I was pretty good and pretty solid, but the whole while I was always busting my ass to improve every aspect of me all over. And a lot of people didn't even notice that still, when Jeff became, the standout, so to say.
Yeah.
From a physical standpoint, from even the way my body looked, to my performance in the ring, even to speaking, which I didn't get that opportunity as much.
Yeah.
But, there was a big thing there that a lot of people didn't realize it until, I did break out on my own, that, I had improved a lot, but a lot of people just didn't notice it.
Yeah.
It was just like that stigma that was put on Jeff as far as being, the standout because he got more opportunities. And once again, like I said, I think if Vince McMahon or people from the creative team really get that burnt in their head that Jeff is the guy, it's really hard to break that idea.
Yeah.
Until I'm just given an opportunity to do some good stuff, and they go, whoa, he actually can do stuff. He can perform. So my whole goal was, I always knew I felt very confident. I didn't have the flash that Jeff had, even he's just such an oddball and just such a likable person. And and once again, my strengths as a character, my strengths from a personality standpoint are very different, and I didn't have a chance to really show that to everyone. And I just knew if I had an opportunity, I was very confident between my personality being strong in the way I would express it, and also my skills in the ring as far as being able to do my thing in my way. Jeff Hardy was a representative of the Hardy Boys because he fit more to the style that we represented, where I didn't. But I knew once I got all on my own, I was doing something on my own that I would be fine myself and kind of go in my own direction.
And what was the first thing that stands out in your mind as a singles wrestler that said, this is who I am and this is who I become, this is who I've matured into, without Jeff by your side?
Honestly, I'll tell you, going back, it's very odd that I would say this, but when I'd gotten to the best shape I felt like I'd ever been at that point in my life, and I really felt like I was strong as a performer in ring-wise from an athletic standpoint, because I knew that Jeff was getting ready to take a leave of absence from TV, and I was getting ready to have an opportunity on my own. So I was very, very motivated because I knew this was going to be my chance to shine if I was going to get one.
Yeah.
So during this time, and we've been over this before already, is where Jeff ended up being forced to stay on TV because Stone Cold had left, and he did this thing with The Undertaker where he was making, where he's making this name for himself, and the WWE brass were really behind him. And I was on Heat every week, but I had a series of matches on Heat, like 5 or 6 weeks back to back. Actually, Stevie Richards, I wrestled him 3 times.
Yep.
And I had some great matches. Like, even if you go back and watch those things on Heat, like, Stevie was so fired up every week. And there were a couple other people I had one with
Raven there at the time?
PJ, I had one with Raven. I mean, every week on Heat, I was still producing these really great matches. And just, my body looked the best it had been. And just there was a different feel for me. And, the whole style of my match and my whole demeanor was, different from the Hardy Boys, so to say, in the extreme style. But it was something I definitely felt I could excel in if given the opportunity.
And what was your character at that point? Were you developing into the Manitou type character at that point, or was that
really?
How did that come about?
Really, there was no character development. I mean, really, I was just an extension of just being, half the Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
Because I think when we started. At that point, when we were kind of split for a second and people were looking at us both, Jeff just carried on the persona of the Hardy Boys, and I knew that really wasn't my gig.
You had input on who the Hardy Boys were, but it did become identified with what was more Jeff's natural persona.
Yeah, no. I mean, my gig isn't to go out and jump off 12-foot ladders.
Yeah.
I mean, I can do that stuff here and there. My gig is to go out and be solid and beat the fuck out of people, and you know what I mean. That's a lot more of me.
And logic-based, tell a story in your match.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell a story and make everything mean something and really get the most out of everything.
Yeah.
Jeff, on the other hand, was very just had, this is my big trick here, and then I'll do some stuff, whatever, and then I've got another big trick here, and then another big trick here, and but it worked for him, you know what I mean? And it's just, he became the personification of what the Hardy Boys were, so it's almost like The Office too. I felt like I was stripped because they kind of took everything that we built together and kind of put it on him, if you understand what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah.
And at the point in time, it was a little discouraging, but I said, that's okay, because I definitely can do something on my own, which I later would prove that I could.
Yeah.
You know, but whenever Jeff started doing that on his own, they kind of gave him all the juice we had as the Hardy Boys. It's like he became this guy that was like, live for the moment, and he became the guy that was just, you know, didn't care what he did. He would attack The Undertaker. He would do this, do that, very free spirit, which was a cool deal, and it fit him so good because it was very similar to the person he really is.
And do you blame management at this point? Steve Austin leaves, and management's looking, and they need someone to fill in, and Jeff had not been utilized in that manner, in a top spot as a singles wrestler yet, and in their mind, he was more popular with the fans because he could do what fans expected from the Hardy Boys in a singles match with Taker. Do you blame them for choosing him at that moment instead of going with you?
Not really. I mean, it's just hard to blame them. It wasn't done in spite, and like
Yeah.
I don't think it was done against me. It was just like kind of what was thrown in front of them.
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things, like there's so many different personalities and so many people that, you know, management is trying to look after. And if you're not one of those top 2 or 3 guys, then it's real easy to get, you know, fall behind. And
Yeah.
just Jeff stood out as being the more attractive person to roll with. And I understand that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, there is Jeff and Matt contributed a lot to that team. And
Yeah.
he you know, Matt is really a role model employee. And don't forget about Matt is my main thing.
Yeah.
You know, and it's real easy too, like when I say that, like when you get lost in the shuffle, don't forget about you. It's a very what have you done for me lately type deal.
Yep. Now, do you think at that moment, in their moment of need, that Jeff was able to instantly do something as a short-term fix that would have taken more time to build if you were put in that spot? Or do you think if they said we need, if Jeff were injured and they said, Matt, we're going with you, do you think you would have actually been more effective immediately as an opponent for Undertaker?
No, not necessarily.
Yeah.
I think because Jeff did have the standout representation of the Hardy Boys. I think he was better for the short term.
Yeah.
But once again, it's just like you can't think in short term
Yeah.
all the time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think if I'd been put in that same spot that he did, I would have done really well.
Yeah.
You know, it would have been different because like
Well,
Jeff.
your heart would have been in it. You wouldn't have been seeing this as, oh man, I have to stick around longer like he did because he was ready to go home.
I'm just saying, like, if that would have been something you'd put me in,
Yeah.
he would have had more momentum as it went through. But towards the end of it, it'd been a real career maker for me.
Yeah.
I really believe that.
Yep. So now you're on Heat. You're in some ways off the radar. I mean, there's
Sure,
a lot
yeah,
of stuff that goes on Heat that if you quizzed
No, being
Vincent's-
on Heat's off the radar.
Yeah, I mean, Vince and Stephanie would lose a quiz if they were quizzed on what was going on Heat to the average wrestling fan because, you know, it's just off their radar. It's something that's done. But yet you had to be making an impression on some people and also gaining confidence yourself, even if it wasn't Vince and Stephanie.
Right. And I mean, there were people. I mean, people knew what I could do. You know,
Yeah.
especially like the agents who saw stuff on
Yep.
house shows. I'll tell you this: whenever the weekend Steve walked out, we were in Albuquerque. I'm trying to think where the other show was. Albuquerque and Bakersfield, California, and they were going to announce to people at the beginning of the show, or no, I'm sorry, not the beginning of the show. After the first match, they were going to say Stone Cold Steve Austin isn't here tonight, and if you want your refund, you have to get it done in the next 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And that was their deal. But whenever the company does that, they want to put something out right after they make that announcement that's going to keep their attention.
Yeah.
The match that went out that they asked to go 20 minutes and have a pay-per-view quality match was Matt Hardy versus Eddie Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else was on the show,
Yep.
girls included.
Yep.
I mean, and that definitely says that they had faith in me to go out there and put on a kick-ass match so
Yep.
we keep people involved. And they asked us, just go out and have like a pay-per-view quality match. And actually went out there with Eddie, and Eddie's an interesting guy to work with. He's just got a phenomenal heart. He's just such a great guy.
Yeah.
He's very on and off in different situations just because he's been through so much in his life, I think.
Yep.
But Eddie's also a guy, like, I'm very good at working on a timetable. Like, if I need to go 20 minutes in the ring, I'm very good at doing it. Eddie, if you say go 20 minutes, he might go 15, he might go 39. You just never know. Eddie just gets out there and he feels whatever his heart tells him.
Yep.
And I remember that first night we went 26 minutes, a little bit longer, and I knew it was time to start wrapping things up.
Yeah.
And the next night in Bakersfield, they said, you guys don't have to go that long. We actually went 30 minutes.
Wow.
But we had great matches each night, and even to have the respect.
Is that the first time you'd worked Eddie singles? Like you're on the spot on TV?
No,
Okay,
I
so you had a
worked
little.
before. Actually, I had a program with him before. Actually, when I won the European title, it was with him.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep.
And we started going into a long program, actually, where that was actually the first time they actually considered breaking us up. But then that actually died because Eddie had his demons at that
Yep.
point, and that's when he'd left for
That's right.
for
Yep.
his problems.
Yeah.
But no, it wasn't the first time I'd worked Eddie. I'd worked him a lot of times. And just knowing that those guys respect you, like him and a Benoit, like too, like because they're the best in the business as far as when you get in there and wrestle. And if they know that they go, cool, Matt, I'm working you tonight. This is gonna be great. It's gonna be
Yep.
easy. It'll be fun. That says a lot in itself.
Because Eddie and Benoit, world travelers. I mean,
Sure.
Mexico, Japan, ECW, WWE, WCW. They had been everywhere, wrestled every style of person. They know who they want to work with at this point in their career. So it is absolutely a compliment if they're not rolling their eyes going, oh, gee, I got to carry this guy.
Right.
Yeah. So you had these it was back-to-back nights against Eddie. Mm-hmm. And did you get any direct feedback from management? Is that how WWE works? Where you
people were taking notice of the matches I was having on the road as a singles wrestler and the matches that I was having on Heat week in and week out, even if the higher management really weren't paying close attention to it. And I was working with one of the writers, and he'd given me an opportunity. He said, well, if you want to do a small promo, just a drop-in promo to go over your entrance as you're going to the ring, we can do that. And I said, oh, yeah, that's cool. He said, just think about what you want to say, and you kind of have free reign with it. It was actually Ed Koski, and unfortunately, he was pretty lenient. Like, whatever I wanted to say, I could. And I dropped in, and I know I concluded, I said, and in Stevie Richards tonight, you'll find out what it's all about to get in the ring with Matt Hardy, version 1. And that was actually the first time that I did that. And everybody, that saw it was like, what the fuck's that?
Yeah.
It's like I've got all this stuff laid out in my head, it just kind of seemed silly to people in the beginning, whatever. But I definitely had an idea and a concept I wanted to do, and if they'd give me an opportunity, I felt like I could do something with it.
And what was the concept behind it? Where did that brainstorm come from?
The concept behind it was that, as far as me being on my own, like whenever you saw Matt and Jeff Hardy together, it was the Hardy Boys, a tag team as a unit, and you only saw like a part of me, and you only saw a part of Jeff, because there is a part of me that does enjoy going through tables and jumping off ladders and having these high impact matches, which is fun, but that's really not my forte. That's not what I'm about. I mean, if you see Matt Hardy version 1, you're seeing the true, pure form of Matt Hardy, the real Matt Hardy, what Matt Hardy represents, what he means.
Yeah.
It's not just an extension of Matt Hardy that's one of the Hardy Boys. So Matt Hardy version 1, just the full thing, just like a piece of computer software or whatever.
Yeah.
The original, the OEM, the original Matt. That's what version 1 represented.
Okay, very good. And had you proposed this at any time in the past, before this, or was this something that you had the idea and you decided to do it, and the timing was right?
Well, I had the idea. I actually, ironically enough, I suggested the idea for myself, Jeff, Edge, and Christian to be the version 1 group at one point of the version 1, the 4 guys that were the version 1 prototypes of what the future of wrestling is supposed to be.
And was that when DX was still around, or was that?
That was when DX was still around, because that's what we all wanted to do. It was just after we had the ladder match and we had this mutual respect thing, and the people were into all 4 of us, and I just thought we could really do something as an act, and I was going, wow, this would be cool. Like, I remember speaking with those guys, we could do something, and we're against DX, because we knew that would definitely elevate us.
Yeah.
But apparently people heard about that. They said, nah, we really don't want you guys together. We're going to just keep you apart. We don't want an association there. But I just think the 4 of us, like 4 young, good-looking guys, would have been, I think it could have been pretty cool. I think if I would have been booking promoter, I would have took a shot with it, especially coming off that ladder match and how appreciated
standing ovations and
But I mean, you could have went anywhere out from there, but not to give it a shot. I think they were kind of missing something. But what do I know?
So did you get feedback to the hand signal when you did that? I mean, what kind of reaction did you have? You said people were going, "What was that all about?"
People just thought, why'd you do that, or what does that mean, or is it goofy, and it's hard. I mean, people. The first time people get a taste of anything, they're not really going to understand it or explain it until you have a chance to do it kind of over and over and over again. And I think the performer that does something like that has to have definitely a concept in mind of where they're going to go from point A to point Z. You know what I mean?
And how did you, that was point A, how did you work to B, C, D, and E from there?
Well, Mattitude was another thing that I had in mind. And just saying Mattitude was more or less like my soul. And just whichever way they end up going with it, as far as being a babyface or a heel, I mean, there's a couple ways you could do it. I mean, obviously, just out there saying Mattitude is obviously a heel thing, rubbing in somebody's face, but there's a way that could be a babyface thing too, and that's definitely 2 of the concepts I had as far as version 1 and as far as Mattitude. And whenever I figured I was going to be going to SmackDown, I figured more or less it would be a heel, and there were just several different concepts, and the MFers thing was something I'd wanted to do even before I ever went to SmackDown, as far as having like 2 people with me, or even referring to my fans as the MFers, the Mattitude followers. I mean, there were just several different concepts that I could see in this, and just as far as the direction I was going to go, kind of considered what kind of environment or situation they were going to put me in, because it would definitely be different if you were in a program with Bob Holly as opposed to being in a program with Undertaker, or opposed to being in a program with Rey Mysterio. Yeah.
So, to talk about the transition from Heat to SmackDown, what was the time frame of that, and what opportunities did you have at that point in SmackDown to start really being able to show what you wanted to be able to show on television?
Well, this is another good story too, which I'll tell you what led to the version 1 character, which I know how it happened, even though people wouldn't admit to it. It's just whenever Jeff was doing his own as a singles performer, and I'd asked for this opportunity, I actually spoke to Vince. I remember actually speaking to Hunter, and one of the things you said earlier, he said, well, I think Jeff, this is directly from Hunter, he said, well, I think Jeff is a very talented, but he's a very short-term performer. He said, I see a lot more like over a long term as far as really being around and being dedicated, and like over the long haul being able to wrestle style where you can do a lot more. He's kind of like a shooting star. He's very bright for a certain amount of time, but could burn out real quick and be limited. And I remember in speaking with management, I said, I know you guys, I'm not saying I'm more popular than Jeff. That's how I would preface all this. I'm not saying I'm more popular than Jeff. But I'm saying without me, we wouldn't have been what we were